Hello there, this is Cindy at cindybdesigns.com. Thank you for joining me today. This is the card that we will be making. A couple more techniques, and I am going to show you how to make that vase there that we did in the center from the Woven Textures Designer Series paper. But we are back to Florals in Bloom. Last card I promised for a while. Next week we'll be doing paper pumpkin alternatives, actually on Saturday. So be sure to join me this weekend. Quick look at that sweet collection again and just how large it is with the Gems Designer Series paper, two sets of die cuts, two stamp sets, and on pages 40 to 47 of the annual catalog. And there's also a scrapbooking kit that matches this in this catalog as well, so be sure to look that up. That's another look at the stamp sets. And when I first get something like this, I like to play around with it, and I stamped just a ton of images in all the sweet collection colors there that you can see. And I did not, I mean, cardstock, valuable real estate. And the way I do this, I don't lose any space or waste any cardstock or anything like that. And I'm going to show you how I do that. And then we will eventually die cut all of those out. So how I put all that together is our Stamparatus, I know it's off market. It's 7x7. A lot of people use Misty, and I believe that you can do a 5x5 or a 6x6 in that. I have one. I just haven't used it lately. So what I've done is I've cut basic white regular cardstock down to 6x6, and I pop that into the Stamparatus, and then I choose an image or images. It depends on what you're doing. And I lay that down because if you ink several images up with different colors of our Stampin' Cubes, you can do several at one time. But I'm just doing one at one time because I want to lay a lot down here in different colors. So that's in Secret C from the Pretty Florals stamp set, which is included in the Florals in Bloom Sweet Collection. And I'm laying that down, and after I lay it down, I just make a 90 degree turn clockwise or counterclockwise. It depends on if you're left or right handed. And that way they're all four laid down at the exact same spot, but it's got to be square, either 4x4, 5x5, 6x6, even 3x3, whatever you want to do. So now we're going to be doing some two-step stamping, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to call it kind of like a Snapdragon image. It just reminds me of Snapdragon. So I'm laying down the solid part of it first. And you want your solid part to be in the lighter color. And in this case, it's going to be petal pink. No. We're using that on our card. In this case, that is going to be Pool Party, because I haven't done things in this color yet. Pool Party. And I'm going to do the exact same thing all the way around again. I know my pad is like pretty juicy, but it does work out in the end because the outline color I'm going to impress upon that from Pretty Florals, that is going to be laid down in Lost Lagoon. That is not a color of the Sweet Collection, but you know what? All blends in. And it works out because that cloud cover issue we have going on right now with that ink color. And I explained in last week's video on Wednesday or Saturday how you're able to get that. So please go take a look at that. I think my camera battery ran out, but at least we had better lighting here because it quit raining, because I do live, in the Midwest. Very simple to line up the line art on top of the solid image there. And this is where I'm laying down the Lost Lagoon. And you can see how pretty that is going to look. If I had to do this all over again, especially with that juicy Pool Party ink pad, I would have laid that line art down twice. If it came across like true Pool Party, then yeah, only once. But a lot of times when my ink pad's too juicy like that, I just take my bone folder and kind of move it around a little bit, more sort towards the edges and the top and bottom. So that way it's good for, ink blending and things like that, which we also did last week. And that's where I pull my ink from, is from that. So we got the rest of Snapdragon down. And now I want to lay down, I haven't done that image yet either. like even stamping it down. And that is another, it's not two-step, but the die cut will cut both the stem and the floral part of it out, but they are two different stamps. So you can lay the stem down in one color and then the flowers down in another. So I think this one is going to be laid down in Lost Lagoon. And you're going to see me, keep doing the 90 degree clockwise or counterclockwise thing. It's going to end up the same no matter what because your cardstock is square. And if you take a good look at that again, there's no paper waste here whatsoever. And this is going to be our last impression. So how I'm going to lay down that flower there is I'm going to use Pool Party ink and Secret Sea with a sponge dauber, which will help soak up that Pool Party ink and give us some really good texture and dimension. And since I haven't done this image before, I had to go back to the catalog because I wanted to see how to lay it down the right way. And that is why that's such a really effective tool for all of us. When you use something for the first time, yeah, kind of need that a little bit, or just like play around and wing it. But I've done some deep dives into this suite collection for the past 2 weeks, and there's a lot more I can do, you can do. Like I said, fun suite collection, but after 4 or 5 videos, I need to do something else for a while, and I think that we all understand that. Okay, so now I'm talking about the Pool Party and the sponge dauber, and you can see how it's like pulling on my stamp there. And so just a teeny tiny bit of Secret Sea on that, but I'm also using bits and pieces of the dauber itself because it is spongy, and that's kind of pretty. You can see the variation of colors there to soak up that Pool Party ink a little bit so it doesn't go down so blotchy. And you saw where I pulled it, towards the end. And we're going to keep going around the cardstock like that. So that is what we are looking like. Everything, what we just stamped, they're all different because we did, daubers and everything like that. So got everything cut out, and these are going to take me a long ways for, future card making with the suite collection. Card base, top folding, A2, Secret Sea, 4 1/4 across by 5 1/2 down. I have a mat of basic white cardstock and then another mat of designer series paper from the suite collection. I cut a piece of basic white cardstock from the 3rd largest die cut in Textured Notes. It has a great frame around it though too. And then I have a piece of Woven Textures designer series paper cut down to 3x4. And on the back side, I adhered white cardstock because I wanted that stability to that, because designer series paper is thick, but I like it thicker. When I'm putting a lot of images behind it, it's just, something I do. Cut those out as well from Old Olive cardstock, from Pretty Florals. And for our sentiment, we're going to have cloud cover cardstock, and basic gray is going to go behind that. So I brought in the machine there, and that is, we're going to cut our vase from that cardstock there, the woven textures. And this is like something I kind of made up because it worked out. And I'm running it through twice to make sure it's cut all the way through because it is going to be thicker cardstock. But when I look at dies, I try to see that, okay, can I use them for other purposes, for things I don't have on board that may be in the catalog, and make it work for me? And this did. So I'm bringing in my Stampin', the trimmer, and I'm going to take about a 1/4 inch off of that. If I had a redo, I would probably have taken it all the way down to where it's like rounded there at the bottoms, but that kind of looked like my planters out front on the porch, so I went with that. And I'm bringing in our designer series paper, putting seal on the back of that, and going to get that adhered to our white base there. That's going to be a tight cut because there's only like an eighth of an inch in between those margins there. So I'm really careful how I lay it down. And that is what we're looking like. That is going to be our image panel. So I'm bringing in our stamp apparatus. I'm going to lay that down because everything has to line up here, right? And the first thing I want to do, yeah, the camera stopped, is put down our vase that we cut and then put in those standalone die cuts for greenery on the back of the vase. And that is going to be put down with our liquid adhesive. Had a clog there. So I'm putting little teeny tiny dots on the back of that. And then I'm going to sneak it underneath our vase there, which has not been adhered down yet because I have to build everything up in the vase before I put it down. And I think you know what I mean because you want your level of adhesives to balance out. And I say that like during every single video I do. And that's why it depends on how much is behind there, if I build up from behind or from behind on up or up on down. Does that make sense? I know that when I personally design, I have a tendency to put the lower half of my images or my cluster of images, like I'm doing here, with liquid adhesive or seal. I like the top half more so on dimensionals, but the greenery on the top half on glue, that's okay because it's going it's going it's going to work out for me what I have in mind so far. Since the top of my snapdragons, they're going to be on dimensionals. Now, this piece right here that we did there, you can take that or leave it because by the time I put everything together, that's pretty much hidden underneath, and you're just going to see the snapdragons. But you know, it's like I hear them on top, and you can see like the edges over on the left-hand side. So what I'm trying to do here is with this here and how I have my vase and everything like that, I need those snapdragons to be more so vertical than spread out to the, like the center vertical and the left and right kind of horizontal a little bit for that spread there. So I'm thinking about that. And I'm bringing in that cloud covered cardstock and our sentiment from Sweet Blooms about You Make Me Smile. Memento Tuxedo Black. I'm going to lay that down one time. And as I'm inking it up, it's like, oh gosh, I need to ink up this ink pad. So I grabbed another one and then laid it down again, and it worked out. So I got the second impression down. And as I'm cleaning the stamp over on the right there, you're going to see some water flick over to the left of my sentiment. So it's really important to make sure that before you take the stamp off the lid of any stamping, machine, that you make sure your stamp is dry. So I brought in the heat tool to dry that water. Didn't dry, and I'm okay because I'm going to cut that sentiment down, very small. So that is cut down to 2 3/4 by 7/8. And the 7/8 side is like what I just cut. And then I'm going to move that over to 2 3/4. And then I'm going to bring in a piece of basic gray cardstock. And that's also not in the Sweet collection, along with Lost Lagoon. And that's where I'm taking the measurements because I knew that you'd want to know it. And I'm going to cut that cardstock a 1/2 inch wider on. Okay, let me get my thoughts together here. That mat is going to be actually smaller. It's it's going to be wider on the 7/8 side to 1 7/8, 1 1/8, okay, and then 2 1/4 across. Whereas the sentiment itself was 2 3/4 across. So I'm taking it down by a 1/2 inch and then bumping it up by a 1/2 inch. Camera battery went dead. Got that all adhered down like you see there. And then I decided to pull in this white frayed grosgrain ribbon. And I believe that's an online exclusive. And I'm going to grab in my Scotch tape there and adhere that to the back to get that down. And I use my nail just to, well, make it extra downy. And I'm snipping the edge off that. I'm not worried at all about the placement of that ribbon right now at this point in time. We'll get to that in a minute. So now I'm figuring out how to get the rest of our image panel done there and what I want to do and building on our snapdragons and our other flowers. So I'm taping everything down there at the bottom and wondering, okay, where do I get this placement at? But first of all, I got to get the flowers on. So I'm using glue dots, small ones, to get them down at the very bottom there. And I'm just going to put, 3 across there on that little tab, that white tab that they show. And then I'm just going to pop our little snapdragons on top of that. And the back of those glue dots, they're going to go flying everywhere. Now, when I line those up, I want to make them more up and down than I do kind of like spread out because I don't want it to go outside of our, faux container that we made there. Although some bits and pieces do, but that's okay. No flower, like my flowers, they're hanging all over everywhere, but not to where it's unattractive. And so I'm getting everything lined up there. And then I'm going to bring in my Scotch tape again, flip that over, and then just give that some more reinforcement with that rather than smother it with glue, not with glue dots, but with stamped dimensionals. And I am going to add some of them to the back. You know how I like to kind of stagger my images like that if they're tucked in or things I do like that, especially with flowers. I like to glue down the bottom of the flowers and put stamped dimensionals on the top at the back there. So that way it just gives it some really good dimension. I wasn't liking how that stem in the middle just showed through at all. So I brought in some of our other cut pieces that we did at the beginning of this video and liked how that looked. So I'm taping that to where it's going to look pretty on the our snapdragons there. I'm trying to think of words right here because it's kind of zooming by, not too fast, but I did this several days ago. Mark that where I want to put the flower, but in the meantime, I think I'm going to grab that flower and pull it out because it is laying too flat up against our snapdragons there, and I'm going to pull in a bone folder. I guess not. I'm going to lay down some tear and tape where I put that pencil mark there so I know where to lay down that flower. And it's just going to hold down the very bottom part of it. And then I'm going to grab a bone folder and curl up the edges there like you see with that, just to give it, again, some more texture and more dimension. As we're starting to finish this card up here, be sure to come back on Saturday for our May paper pumpkin alternatives, and we'll put together a few of those together. Too many togethers there. Um, so that's going to be my last video for a couple weeks, but be sure to go over to the blog at cindybdesigns.com. I will have content there at least twice a week, probably on Tuesday and Thursday. And then I'll be back as soon as I can for start sharing videos with you again. But in the meantime, I still have a lot of product boxes left, so feel free to pick up one of them. Um, Sign up for my newsletter, and be sure to hit like and subscribe. Share this video if you want. Leave a comment as to what you want to see in the future. And I think that's kind of sort of about it for now. I'm sure I'll come up with something else. But I do have a newsletter coming out, by Friday for sure. So back to our card now. I put glue dots on the bottom and got that adhered down. And I think I turn it to the side where you can see the dimension there, but if not, there's a picture. And I'm not quite sure what happened there. So I'm going to get our image panel down there. You can put, I almost put down a Stampin' Dimensionals, but I didn't have anything wrapped around the panel like I normally do, so that kind of threw me off a little bit. Now for our vase there, I'm putting that down with seal adhesive because the bottom of our flowers there, that is down with seal as well. But if you look to the side, it's a very nice gradual incline up, and it just looks really pretty on the card and on the front. So I'm trying to get that down, figure out the placement. And that was a happy accident there that our mat was cut to, or the sentiment was cut to 2 3/4 across, because that's the exact size of that image panel that we're putting everything on. So again, happy accident. Got Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of that, or I think I used the bones. Kind of figuring out where to place it, because the top of the vase now between where the flowers are, that's looking too boring to me. And I decided to turn around right about now, bring in some linen thread, or that'll be in a couple of minutes. Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of our panel there. And I'm going to get that laid down and then figure out where to cut my tails at. I did play around with tucking the tails underneath the image panel, which I could because of the placement I had with the Stampin' Dimensionals. This is where I come in and get my linen thread. But I think it turned out okay in the long run. So I'm going to tie that into a quick bow and then pop that atop. But when you see me pulling the string out like that, when it's tied around the spool, it's going to it's going to be a lot more kinkier than it would be and harder to tie. So that just stretches the thread out for me and makes it easier for me to tie a bow, because we all know I'm not good at that at all. Into the home stretch now. I really encourage you and invite you to follow me over at Facebook, Cindy B Designs, and on Instagram, same thing, Cindy B Designs. I've learned how to do reels, and I don't have to talk to do that. So that's another thing I'm going to be working on. Now we're finally putting this together. Getting all the Stampin' Dimensionals off the back. I'm going to line that up top to bottom, left to right, and then cut the tails off that ribbon there. A really good idea for that, it is frayed ribbon. Pull apart the ends and you'll get like a really nice fray there, kind of like a horse's tail a little bit. So I'm trimming up our linen thread there, and I thought that this card needed something just a little bit more, and so I'm bringing in our pearls, and I decided upon that rather than using the in color little dots there, the shiny dots. I just wanted to glam this up a little bit, so I used 3 of our large pearls to finish it off. And then during this voiceover at the very beginning of it, I went back in with the pearls and grabbed, but there's not a picture of it, and grabbed 2 small ones and put one like right up to the top, kind of center of that, the U part of the U, like the Y, and then another one like below to the bottom right of the bow. So that is what we are looking like for the final card. I do thank you for joining me today, and we've got 4 videos on the Sweet Collection up on YouTube, and you will see me again in a couple weeks with a video, and I will see you on social media. Have a great week.